book I wrote in about 1975 was the history of the Hungarian uprising of 1956 against the communist occupation of Hungary, for which I had access to a certain number of CIA files, which were very interesting because the CIA carried out in-depth psychological interrogations of a large number of the Hungarian refugees who came to this country after 1956. But the odd thing was that when I began writing that book, I discovered from the CIA files that the Hungarian people, when they started that uprising, it began as an anti-Jewish pogrom. It was essentially an anti-Jewish revolution and not an anti-communist revolution to begin with for the first few days. The Hungarian people regarded their government in the 1950s as being a Jewish government. And they regarded the secret police, the dreaded Államvédelmi Hatóság, the AVH, as being a Jewish secret police. And essentially it was, because when the Red Army entered Hungary in 1945, they brought back into Hungary all the Jews who had taken refuge in the Soviet Union, and they were the ones who got the plum jobs, and they were the ones who got the trustworthy jobs as secret police chiefs and as torturers. And that's why the Jews were so hated in Hungary by 1956, because they were regarded as the people who had inflicted this nameless misery on the Hungarian people. And so the uprising began as an anti-Jewish uprising. Every one of the Hungarian leaders at that time in 1956, Rákosi and Farkas and Gero and the rest of the Hungarian leaders, they were all Jews. And I never realized that when I set out to write it. It's an extraordinary fact, the way these things are kept away from the public consciousness. In particular, the local population had bitter scores to settle with the Jews, because during the 1 year when those countries were occupied from 1940 to 1941 under the Hitler-Stalin Pact, they were occupied by the Soviet Union. The NKVD, which was the secret police, the forerunner of the KGB, had occupied those three countries with a reign of terror, and using largely Jewish officers, because the KGB or the NKVD was largely Jewish officers at that time, they had carried out a rule of liquidation and purge in those three countries, murdering hundreds of thousands of local middle-class entrepreneurs. The priests, the businessmen, the intellectuals were rounded up, driven off at dead of night by the communists, by these Jewish organizations, and murdered. And a year later, when Hitler's armies invaded and marched through these countries, they found the local population busy solving the Jewish problem for them, taking revenge. Nobody likes talking about that now, but if you read the records, particularly the German military records, where reports are coming to Hitler's headquarters saying, when we arrived in Riga, we found the local population busy exterminating the Jews, what shall we do? And from Hitler's headquarters back goes a signal saying, don't interfere. Don't interfere. This is the true story of what happened, but it's an unpopular story. And of course, inevitably, when the book came out, I was accused of anti-Semitism for having written it. But what am I supposed to do when you discover something as a historian? Are you supposed to try and pretend it isn't that? And if you do pretend it isn't that, you're doing the Jewish people more harm than good.